Continuing our series on protecting SharePoint content and configuration, in this video we're going to look at import and export of content using Central Admin. So we're going to head over to the Backup and Restore menu in Central Admin, and under Granular Backup we have options such as backup a site collection or an individual site or list. So first of all, let's look at backing up a site collection, and here I can select my site collection for backup. Let's go with the root of the intranet. And then we can give it a name, so the path to the backup location. And a name for the backup file. Then we can start the backup. Now, if I attempt to access this site collection whilst the backup is in progress, then the site collection will be locked for edit and no updates can happen whilst the backup is taking place. If we wish to allow edits to happen whilst the backup is happening, then we'd need to do that with PowerShell, and well, we'll talk about that later. So, as you can see, the backup has completed. If I want to restore this, then I have to use PowerShell to do so. Let's just go to the backup location. Here's our backup file. If I restore or attempt to restore a site collection backup using PowerShell, incidentally, we need to make sure the farm that I'm restoring this into has the same version or greater of content database. Otherwise, we're going to get errors. So let's head back to the backup menu. I can also export a site or a list, and I can just select a site collection. And this sounds very similar to site collection backup, but there are quite a few differences. Practically, if I use site or list export, then I'm not going to get things like workflow associations. So if we've got workflows being developed and used in lists and libraries in this site collection, we're going to have to manually hook those up again after the restore. You don't get that problem with a backup of a site collection using the previous method. So let's paste in our previous path, and instead of .back, I'm going to call this .cmp, which stands for Content Migration Package, just so we know what that is. And unfortunately, there is no import using Central Admin. I've got an option to export security and all versions or just the most recent, and so on. I can be specific and pick a single site or subsite within my site collection. I could even drill down and pick a single list if I wanted to. That's now exporting. Now that's pretty granular, however, bear in mind that lists and libraries could potentially have hundreds, thousands or millions of items in them, so it could still be an enormous file that we end up making. Now that's completed, let's go to our file share and make sure it exists. There we go. Very small, as it's just one list. If I want to import that, I'm going to have to use PowerShell, and to import an exported site, web, or list, the site into which you're going to restore it needs to exist first. So it won't create that, you're going to have to create that first. So that's most of our restore operations we're going to have to do in PowerShell, which you'll see in a subsequent video. But there is another trick up our sleeve with Granular Backup. We can also recover data from an unattached content database. Now what that means is, imagine the scenario you have a user who's deleted a file from a library, and maybe they've even deleted it from their recycle bin, or 30 days have gone by and it's just gone from SharePoint. But luckily we've got a content database backup. If we were to restore that database to SQL Server, give it a new name, obviously don't restore it over the existing one, that would be bad. We don't need to set up a SharePoint web application to use that new content database. Instead, we can use this here to select a database that's unattached to SharePoint. So for instance, I have one called My Old Content Intranet. That's a freshly restored copy of a previous backup. Now what I'd like to do is browse the content, or from here bring out a particular site collection, or from here bring out a particular site or list. So let's go with browse content, and here we can see what's in our backup. I could then try and find the list I care about, maybe documents library, and export that one single list again. And I'm going to give it a new name. And hopefully this will begin to export the whole document library from our old backup. That's completed. Let's go to our file share. There we are, a previous version, smaller. So in this module, we've had a look at exporting content from Central Admin, a few different ways of doing that. In the next video, we're going to look at exporting again using PowerShell, but then importing from either of these two mechanisms using PowerShell back into SharePoint. This ends the video.